Hey guys, August 24th, 2025 here with your nightly watch list video. Before we go into that, I did not make a Friday afternoon recap, so let's just kind of touch upon what happened on Friday. We had Jackson Hole with Jerome Powell speaking, and he basically gave the green light that there will be a shift in policy stance, effectively signaling there will be a rate cut in September, and then there will most likely also be a rate cut in December as well. So my assumption is two quarter basis points cuts. That seems to be the most logical. And then, as soon as he started speaking, just an absolute rip in the RTY, or effectively the IWM. And when you kind of think about, the move that the IWM made in comparison to the NASDAQ, was not very surprising to me personally, just because of positioning. You get kind of a move in positioning where you get really offsides on both sides, where the NASDAQ is highly longed, and then on the other side of that you get the Russell, which is highly shorted. And then you also get what's recently, kind of something I've been tweeting about for the last few weeks, whether it's home builders, biotech, or small caps, anything that is rate sensitive. Now, home builders, personally, I think home builders are a little bit more rate sensitive to the long end. So like something like the 30-year, 20-year, something like that. But, the short end, biotech, small caps, as soon as Jerome Powell started speaking, it's, he basically would have just said, risk on. But then when you get that big outperformance, and you've been getting a pretty big outperformance for the last few weeks, Russell versus the NASDAQ, I think that just has everything to do with positioning. It's small caps haven't really led for more than just a few weeks at a time. But when I look at the RTY, or effectively the IWM, we're just like 4% from an all-time high. My expectation is we probably go and see that all-time high. And my expectation is that the Russell continues to outperform the QQQ, so long as positioning is kind of skewed the way it is. And when markets go up, the Russell will more than likely outperform by just a few basis points, 50 basis points, 80 basis points, 100 basis points. But there was like a huge discrepancy, like 2% plus on the Russell on Friday, if I'm not mistaken. So, kind of a eye catcher, but that's just because of positioning. So, and everything was really up on Friday. The things that weren't up, that should have been a little bit more alarming. Obviously, Ethereum had a pretty massive day. Bitcoin lagged that move, and then even over the weekend, really, should I say today, Bitcoin kind of unwind that move from Friday. So, it's kind of lagging. I would say Bitcoin is, and let's just take a quick peek at that. And I don't really know the reasoning for it. I still don't think it looks absolutely horrible, but you get this big move up on Friday, and then obviously you get this kind of a nasty move back down over the weekend. And then, of course, as the futures market's opening up, they're opening up lower. So, don't really know what to make of that, but, that is just an observation that it's obviously lagging Ethereum. But then again, even like an Ethereum, pretty crowded on the long side, so don't know how much more juice it might have. Again, no real opinions on that side. I was just a fan of the Russell as a potential long idea, versus the NASDAQ. So that was just nice to see, and obviously we had really, really big moves in a name like Tesla. And this thing, if this isn't on everybody's radar, over the next week, into this upcoming week, I don't know what the hell they'd be looking at. This is just an absolutely monster consolidation here that looks about ready to go higher. So, with that said, every name was up. It was awesome. Friday was a ripper. IWM was up 4% at one point, I thought it was, and TNA, which is kind of the proxy or the leveraged ETF that I would have been thinking to use for that, absolutely monster day. LabU, almost looks ready to go, and obviously this is your ETF for XBI, and then your home builders, XHB was acting absolutely fantastic. And you could look at the XHB and it looks a lot like Pulte PHM or KB Homes. So they all look effectively identical. So it's nice to see them starting to work. Anyway, with that said, let's just kind of start to jump into some names. I already mentioned Tesla. This thing is looking fantastic. Should be on everybody's radar into this week, in my opinion. Does this thing just keep chopping around for another week or two? I have no idea, but if this thing starts to get some power, which it really did on Friday, woke right back up, reclaimed the 200, reclaimed the 20, reclaimed the 10, held on to the 50, built another higher low. I mean, it looks ready to go despite all of the negative news with Tesla recently. DoorDash, another one, holding on to the 50. This thing has done a really nice job trending, since the April lows. We've gone sideways here now, for about a month plus, almost 2 months is effectively where we're at in price, except this little blip higher and a pullback. But really, this is exactly what you want to see price do, make a move up, and kind of start to churn sideways, let moving averages catch up, and Dash has done just that, where it's now let the 50-day catch up. So really nice to see. SE is another one I'm trying to find myself in. Did not buy this one on Friday. I thought it had a really nice pivot on the 60-minute chart, but I did not go and try to get myself positioned into SE. If gold is going to continue, and gold base is absolutely massive, my expectation here is that after 5 months of sideways, we are probably going to get another attempt at that $3,600. I think that's a possibility. So we'll just kind of keep an eye on that if that's going to happen. If that's going to happen, you do have some names that are acting really well, namely AEM, NEM, KGC, CDE, and you could kind of just work your way down the list. These things are hanging in there really, really well. AG. So, there's just a basket of stocks that made a move up. They're basing. They're acting well, and that kind of leads me to believe that maybe the metal sector is not done just yet. Maybe one more final push, before it's probably done for a little bit. You kind of think about where gold has come from. It's been on the move for about a year and a half now. So, and all of a sudden, people kind of love it after it's already made a huge move, which is kind of weird. Last March was definitely the time to try and get involved into that, and it's just been a fairly clean trender this entire way. HUT, I think this one looks pretty good. This one is not really moving with the crypto theme as much, and that same could be said for an iron, same could be said for a wolf. These are kind of moving more so on the thesis of their data centers, their data center plays. They've got access to a lot of power, and that's kind of what makes them a bit more interesting, more than they're just crypto miners. I feel like that's just another part of their business, but it's not the sole focus of some of these people's companies' businesses. So, that is nice. Hut, Wolf, and iron, I think, those are the ones that are acting best, probably the ones that I would focus on going forward. I don't necessarily love the price action here in iron. I don't see anything that I can, grab onto and say, yep, I need to buy this through XYZ level, but it is just one to kind of keep an eye on going forward. As it relates to the solar sector, obviously NXT, in my opinion, is your leader, and this thing's hanging out right near a 52-week high. FSLR is another one. Sedge is another one. RUN is another one. So there are stocks now within the group that are starting to act a whole lot better. And, whenever I'm kind of, looking at a particular sector, I want to know that it's just not like some one-off stock, right? There's multiple names within the group starting to act well. That kind of helps get some conviction that, how can all of these just be going up if there's not some institutional flow going into these names? Are they highly shorted? Yeah, some of them are. But, I think about a name like FSLR, I think about a name like NXT, and I say to myself, you know what? I could see those definitely, going higher in time. And, it's just about how high are they going to go in a short period of time. That's related to the group that they're in and the underlying group strength. And obviously just like waiting for a proper entry so that you can manage risk from, and then buying them, on a day when the group's acting well, at a time when the market's in uptrend, which allows you to gain some cushion on your position fairly quickly. CCL, one I've owned now for months, since 626, so basically 2 full months. You have built this nice new little flat base. I will be keeping an eye on this thing. Love the volume that came into this thing on Friday. I mean, just look at the hourly volume candlesticks that were coming into here. Just totally dwarfs anything that we have seen for the last several weeks. Love to see that. I mean, I own it. It's nice to see a new 52-week high. I've been sitting here patiently, literally since 626. So the 50-day is going to be my stop, but I would like to potentially add to this name, and over this little flat base breakout, effectively now over Friday's highs, would be a spot of interest if the market's going to stay strong. NBIS looks like this clean little bull flag. After a nice little base breakout, you've had a nice move up, you've had a nice long base, you had a nice little breakout, you had a nice reaction to earnings, you had a clean little quiet pullback into the 20. Can't really ask for a whole lot more. NBIS will remain on the radar. If we have a good reaction from NVIDIA on earnings, and obviously I think this is coming up this week, I'd have to triple check just to be sure, but I want to say it's Thursday. Don't quote me on that. Actually, I guess while I'm here, I might as well just look. NVIDIA's earnings is on the 27th. So, excuse me, that is Wednesday. If NVIDIA's earnings are proper and we get a nice reaction, and by the way, the last several quarters, there hasn't really been a nice reaction, but we will keep an eye on it, because that can affect a name like ALAB, which I would like to potentially see myself in, potentially a name like CRDO, a name like MU, which again, just a clean little bull flag, or an AMD. So just going to kind of keep that back of mind. That is another potential theme, another potential group that is just right there hanging out. Again, solars, semis, maybe some data center crypto names. I mean, there's just it seems home builders. I mean, there's just a lot. Biotechs, and for that I would play the ETF. Small caps as an ETF, but there's really just a ton going on out here. As it relates to the Chinese equities, BABA, pretty big gap up overnight. Don't exactly know what's going on. I'm pretty sure in the Hang Seng they were trading up 6% overnight, and PDD has earnings this upcoming morning. So we will kind of see what the heck's going on with PDD's earnings. Really love how massive this base is, back above the 200 simple moving average. Pinduoduo, Alibaba, and then obviously Futu has been your undisputed leader. XPEV's been acting fantastic for Chinese EVs. TME has been another leader within this space. Nice move up, little clean bull flag right into the 10-day. This is a just gorgeous high type flag. A little bit extended from the 50-day, but if that theme comes to life, it's good to have a basket of stocks. I think Futu's a little extended, TME is just a touch extended, but PDD, BABA, XPEV to me look really good, and we'll just see kind of how these PDD earnings come out tomorrow morning when I wake up, and we can kind of make a decision at that point. So again, another theme to pay attention to. Transmedics is kind of a one-off, but these biotechs, and this isn't really a biotech, they're a medical devices company. I don't hate what this is doing. I know it's kind of going nowhere, but you get these pullbacks, and then you tend to rip right back up, and you get a little pullback, and you rip right back up, and you get a little pullback. I would be keeping my eyes on this thing if we can get over the 50 simple moving average. Obviously, Unity Software, another one of these. A lot of stocks acted like this on earnings, where you kind of push and then you started to fail. Some of them have acted like Groupon, and some of them, right, where you gap up and then you just failed every day, and some of them are acting like Unity. So this is exactly what I want to see. You kind of get that failure. You get that tennis ball action where, something falls, but then it bounces right back up. Those are the things you want to pay attention to. Unity kind of fits that bill. Love what this thing's doing after a really nice move up. It's just starting to flag a little bit higher. Would like to see price trade a little bit tighter instead of so wide and loose, but one also to keep an eye on going forward. Uber, just fantastic. This thing looks like all-time highs in the cards, and then some. Some people, that are super bearish, will just look at this like a head and shoulders, which I don't know why. But the reality is if you're trading over the 50-day, for me, I have no real reason to be super negative unless you've gone parabolic or are going parabolic. But Uber looks perfectly fine to me. I don't really see a setup to just buy it here. I personally hate charts that are channeling higher. I just really can't stand price action like this because it doesn't really give you a spot to get in and limit risk. I want price to either have a flat base or I want it to go up and then build a bull flag. So this is more the price action, right? Or you go up, right? And then you build a flat base. So, there's only really so many ways that you can really limit risk in terms of a technical setup. And I just don't love something like this. Like, you get the move up, you get sloppy move down. You kind of just get this grind back up where it doesn't really explode away from your average. Then you get this ugly down day and then we're right back up. And that's just too much headache. Although I like the name, I don't really see anything to do with it right now. But I will keep it on the radar going forward. Bloom Energy will also continue to stay on the radar. Obviously had this small little pennant up here. I didn't think it was perfect, but obviously the market was so strong on Friday that it just exploded higher. We'll keep that one on my radar as well. IBIT, we will see if this thing can hold on to the 50-day. Obviously, with Bitcoin gapping down, I don't want to see IBIT living under Friday's lows, but so long as we can hang out above Friday's lows, hang out above the 50, I might try and get myself snuck into that name. We already talked about PDD and the earnings that it's got in the mornings. AOI is another one, a little bit sloppy here, but as long as we're living above the 200-day, I would, try and find myself into this stock. We will see what the heck it wants to do, but AOI is looking great going forward. AppLovin, another one of these, acted, well a few days ago with the hammer bar. Everything hammered on Wednesday. Nice follow through on Thursday. Even better follow through on Friday. Don't really see myself buying this thing tomorrow, but if we can have another little pullback and just build a higher low, I would be perfectly fine trying to buy it off of the ascending 20-day. We already talked about iron. Got to give credit to Tempest, TEM, but again, I don't see anything for me to do with this thing right here. It's just in this, every time it has this little spikes higher, it fails. Love the volume that's been coming into this thing, but I don't really have a spot that I can buy it just yet. But it does look good, not coming off the radar. As it relates to the gambling stocks, DraftKings and RSI, again, you get the nasty move down for earnings and you get tennis ball action where it just bounces right back up and holds the 50-day. We're coming up to football season. Pullbacks into ascending moving averages are things that I would be watching. RSI, another name, nice little high type flag, nice gap up for earnings, broke the high volume close on Friday and then off to the races. Shopify, another one of these, just nice explosive move up for earnings, pulls right back in quietly on falling volume into the 20-day and then takes out Thursday's high on Friday as a higher low setup. I think it looks fantastic, but we will see if we can get some follow through in the market this week. So still feels like small caps is the place to be. So long as that positioning stays totally out of whack, which it still is, I would expect, the IWM to be able to outperform whatever it is that the NASDAQ's doing. If the NASDAQ's down, my expectation is that the Russell would be down just a little bit less. And then if, the markets are up, I would expect the Russell to be up just a little bit more. And that's just all based on positioning. I don't know how long that remains to be true. The QQQ has been something that has led for the last 2.5 years. So I don't know if, leadership roles have just flipped, but really there are themes everywhere you look, whether it's gambling. I mean, even airlines recently have been looking pretty dang good. UAL, DAL. So, whether it's airlines, whether it's travel and gambling, whether it's semiconductors, whether it's data center names, whether it's banks, which still look pretty good, JP Morgan and Citigroup. Whether it's gold stocks, I feel like I could just keep going. Home builders, biotechs. There is a ton going on out here right now. It's a slightly bit overwhelming. Like there's a ton to do, ton to keep on top of, but it's a good problem to have, a good way that you could find yourself basically quickly reinvested in the market if you find yourself underinvested, similar to myself. But, there's really no harm, guys, if the market's going to last. It's been an incredible past 4 months. If this bull market's going to continue, the market's just going to continue to give us setups, and the job is to not get discouraged. Continue to look for spots to get involved, continue to do your homework. Where's money going? Where's money leaving? That's the real job. Yeah, anyway, hopefully this video finds you guys well, and I will see you all bright and early for pre-market prep. Cheers.